Right. Welcome to Geek Bros. Geek Bros Talk, your podcast, all things geek related, talk about hardware, software, interact with the community. This is week 11/22, 2015. And on today's agenda, we'll have my brother talk about Singles Day in China. The necessity of Black Friday, is it still a thing? What's kind of like the status on that now, how it's evolved over the years. He also want to talk about Star Wars, the recent release of Star Wars Battlefront, the DLC fiasco with that, and just kind of DLCs and microtransactions and gaming in general. Started probably like around '06 or '07 or something, and we'll just talk about the evolution on that as well. And then we'll also get into ad blockers. You know, I guess the origin of where it came from, why people wanted it, and how it's viewed and used today. And then after that, if we have some time, I'd like to go over the Surface Pro 4 review. I recently got a Surface Pro 4. And so, I just give my initial impressions on that for the 2 or 3 weeks I've had it. So yeah, those are our topics for today. And so let's get started. All right, so Singles Day. Can you tell me something about that?
Yeah, Black Friday, it's a big thing here in the US, but Singles Day, which is the equivalent of Black Friday in China, is much, much bigger. Now, Black Friday, it's upcoming. It's 11/27, the weekend of 11/27, and we also have Cyber Monday.
Mm-hmm.
Now, last year, just to give you some numbers, last year for Black Friday, we had sales of almost $3 billion, and Cyber Monday had sales of about $2 billion. So let's say $5 billion for the whole weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Now, last year for China, their Singles Day is on 11/11.
Okay.
And there is a story behind that, but that would take me a little too long to go over. But last year, a single day sale for Singles Day on 11/11, it was $9.5 billion. And this year, it's $11.2 billion. And that's
Wow.
just for one day, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And the majority of profits was actually garnered by Jack Ma's company, Alibaba, and all his other
Mm.
small,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
extremely massive. And so it's no wonder that there's over a billion people. It's just common sense. That's why so many companies are investing in places like China because the population is so huge,
Mm-hmm.
and they're a lot more now than they were. They're more of a consumer society now than they were just even like 10 or 15 years ago. Now, the reason why I bring this up is Black Friday's upcoming, and I don't know, especially with the advent of Cyber Mondays, more people buying on the internet. I don't know if it's a thing anymore. You kind of still see it on the news, but more and more every year, the cyber sales, the internet sales are overtaking Black Friday. So do you even do the Black Friday thing anymore? Do you even think, from a tech person, do you even think it's worth it to go wait in line?
Yeah, so for me, within this past recent year, after getting like a somewhat disposable income, I've become like a huge consumer because now I'm able to afford a lot more things. And I actually track deals, quite often, almost every single day actually. So there's a few websites to go to. If you're a consumer and if you like quote unquote saving money, um, check out slickdeals.net. This is not like a, paid advertisement or anything. Like I legit use slickdeals.net every day. There's a subreddit called reddit.com/r/build a PC sales. That's where I go for all my PC hardware. And the cool thing about it is that it's really community driven, right? So it's crowdsourcing. People who just get these deals every day and they like pass it on because a lot of these times you can easily miss it. So there's someone else out there looking for similar things that you would be looking for, and then when they see a good deal, they'll post it. But anyways, back to the whole Black Friday thing. After tracking these deal websites for very closely for a year, a lot of the general consensus is that Black Friday isn't really important anymore. Um, I guess for the casual consumer, they don't really know any better. They just think, oh, Black Friday deals. Well, it's changed ever so subtly where it's not really, um, the savings on Black Friday aren't as great as you would think they are. A lot of times, companies will mark up the price on purpose and then slash it down to get like that percentage savings in it, right? So, um, comparative to a deal you can find on like Sick Deals or Build a PC, it doesn't seem worth it. We saw the same thing with Amazon Prime Day, right? It was like super hyped up. Everyone's like, wow, what is this? This is something new. Amazon prompts a lot that it would be bigger than Black Friday. In the end, I didn't see anything worthwhile. I think even statistically, there's like nothing really good, comparative to deals you can find out through the rest of the year normally, right? So, yeah, but what's your general consensus on it? Because that's, mine from the standpoint of someone who tracks like every day.
Yeah, my general consensus, this is a good thing because you're a lot younger. You're like a
Mm-hmm.
millennial. And my generation is like the Gen Xers. And
Mm-hmm.
so, a lot of the mass consumers, they're not as tech savvy. They're just going to look at the ads like Best Buy or Walmart and so forth. That's where they get their information. But, you're right. I mean, when I did work at Best Buy, it was all about having limited quantities, and then they got people in the store so then they
Mm-hmm.
could sell other things. And so it really
Right.
was deal savings. And now, even more than ever, it's not about the deals. So if anybody who is going to physically do the Black Friday thing, it's more of an event. After Thanksgiving, or even they're doing it earlier and earlier every year, let's go ahead and go do the Black Friday thing. It's more of an event thing now. So,
Mm-hmm.
like deals now, especially in tech, you could get good deals all the time now because
Exactly. Right.
competition is so high that your profit margins they're so low. So it's not about the deals. I think Black Friday is more about the event
Mm-hmm.
more than anything else. And
Yeah.
so,
Oh, go ahead.
go ahead. That was my whole thought on that. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think Friday is worth it physically, or
Mm-hmm.
it's an event thing. I mean, and people like
Yeah.
yourself, very tech savvy. You're looking for deals all the time anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So it
Right. Right.
doesn't matter
Yeah.
what time.
It's almost kind of sad in a sense that maybe they could be taking advantage of people who aren't as tech savvy, right? Because like for them, like the stigmatism is like, oh, Black Friday, there has to be deals. Like, we have to go out on it. And then, they could pretty much just manipulate the prices the way they want it to, and people really aren't going to know, right? They're just going to assume automatically that, oh, there's going to be deals on Black Fridays.
Yep.
Well, that is somewhat true, for example, TVs, right? TVs are normally like a pretty hot item on Black Friday. A lot of times, manufacturers make specific model just for Black Friday. That's super cheap on purpose. But you can tell that with the quality control and just like the general like TV, quality itself. It's like, oh, it may be like $150, $200 for like a 50-inch, but it's gonna be $150 50-inch TV. Quality. The price is regardless. It's gonna be that lower quality, and they manufacture it specifically for Black Friday. That motto is just for that one day only.
Yeah.
Just to and like you said, just to draw people in. And some other places do that as well, like Fry's, I believe, right? So they have like this weekly advertisement, like, oh, free cookies or like
Uh-huh.
$2 sodas or something like that, right? It's like, well, who's gonna do that? They're just trying to draw people in to look at other things in the store.
Yeah, that's the whole point. Just
Hmm.
drawing people in so then they could upsell them on their other products.
Right, right.
So that's pretty much it for Singles Day and Black Friday. And as crazy as Black Friday is here, you can imagine in China how crazy it is. But yet you don't really hear people killing each other or
Yeah,
stomping. It's actually more organized, which is
yeah.
kind of. So the second topic I wanted to quickly go over is the recent release of Star Wars Battlefront. It's released by Electronic Arts. It was done by the publisher DICE. They're
Hmm.
an amazing publisher, but people just been really pissed
Oh,
off.
hold on. I'll correct you real quick. EA
Okay,
is publishing it. DICE is developing it.
yeah, that's what I said.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, so EA is the publisher, and DICE,
Yeah.
they're the developer, and DICE very highly regarded development team.
Hmm.
So it was just released this week, and the positives are people love the graphics, the gameplay mechanics, and the controls. And obviously the musical score, the sound effects, everything that is true Star Wars. But what they're pissed off about is something that the gaming community has had to endure now for the past almost 5-6 years now is
Hmm.
releasing not the whole game. Usually, a lot of times they're releasing the beta of a game, and so then they could add DLCs and microtransactions and to make more money. So the problem that people are pissed off with Star Wars Battlefront is the game that you get right now. It's only like 20 or 30% of the whole game, and then the
Hmm.
DLC. The game is $60. The DLC, at least the initial DLC, is another $50, and that won't be released till December 1st, I think. So that's $110 that you're paying for it.
Hmm.
And that, like, that's the reason why I don't like to game. Not only because I don't have the hardware to run it, but even if I did, you don't own the games anymore. You
Hmm.
could get this copy, but yet you're still gonna have to download 10 or 12 gigs of other stuff just to play the game, and that doesn't guarantee that it's gonna work. A lot of
Hmm.
times that, or you have to download additional DLCs, or there's microtransactions attached to it, and so you can't really enjoy the game. Whereas before, in the good old days, when you bought a game, it was complete. You had
Hmm.
the whole, and so and you can't really fault these companies because as mad as gamers are, they're buying them.
Hmm.
If they're not buying them, companies wouldn't have an incentive to keep making them. So, what are your thoughts on like the state of gaming when it comes to that?
Yeah, so I want to say that, microtransactions have probably been around for close to 10 years. Some of the very first instances I can remember, Elder Scrolls Oblivion,
Hmm.
highly regarded RPG by Bethesda. I'm pretty sure everyone knows what Elder Scrolls is.
Yeah.
Anyways, when Oblivion came out, I think some of the first microtransactions that come out were horse armor, right? It's just like some aesthetic armor for your horse for whatever reason. Pay $5, pimp out your horse or whatever. And I remember people were pretty, in arms about that. And this is kind of like a telltale sign of the Battlefield games and EA in general. At least microtransaction, EA, Ubisoft, or I would say EA is probably the worst offender in it. But again,
Definitely.
like you said, gamers are voting with their wallets, right? They're they're paying for it, and they're not really punishing these publishers for it. They're like, well, the publishers to them like, oh, we're making money off it. Why stop, right? You
Yep.
know. But to me, the way I view that, and like you said, it will turn people off eventually, and people always so here's the cycle I feel it happens. People always initially complain about it, uh, but in the end, and the great thing about PC gaming is that prices get slashed on, extremely quickly. Wait, 3, 4 months, and a game could already be half price by then. Uh, me being, I guess, like the savvy tech consumer, I never really buy games, initially when they launch, unless I really, really, really need to play it. And that's hasn't been the case in quite a while. But what a lot of people do, they just wait for sales. To be honest, like Steam has 2 or 3 big sales a year. Here's another subreddit I like to shout out: reddit.com/r/game deals. Another community funded, just like people finding out game deals for you, and things that you'd be interested in. So yeah, I mean the initial backlash is always, oh, why is it coming out so expensive? But if you could wait a couple months, then yeah, it'd be a lot cheaper. But just the idea of microtransactions in general, some people do it very well, some people don't do it very well. Point in case, I think even the recent like Battlefield 4, right? Nowadays they're paying for more map packs, things that needs to come along with the game. A lot of times like games are released like broken on release. If you look at Batman Arkham Knight on PC,
Yeah.
it did so bad that they had to recall it from the stores, and you couldn't buy it for a couple months. Even when they re-release it, it still runs like crap. And you know what? Like you said, people are just voting with their money, so it's like to the developers and publishers, like why stop? Unless it comes to the point where like people, I guess there's like a threshold, right? So there's a point where you can cross where people are just like gonna stop buying your game. But then there's like I feel like a threshold that they can kind of play around in, they can kind of skirt around in, that's kind of like, oh well, we know it's not gonna make the community happy, but we're making enough money to warrant, the backlash on it.
They keep pushing it.
Hmm.
So,
Exactly.
like, they know there's a lot of Star Wars fans. So they'll do this, and the majority they might be mad, but they're still going to buy it, and
Exactly.
which they did. And so, and also, this is kind of interesting dynamic. Like, your generation, you're kind of used to it, okay? But the generations after you, they won't know the other way. They're
Hmm.
they're gonna whenever you buy a game, that's automatically part of it.
Hmm.
So it's a generational thing as well. And these game companies know it. Like, when they release the game initially, they'll have a DLC, and then later on, they'll repackage the game with the whole DLC and all the microtransactions, and then for the same price. And now you get the whole, like there's a limited edition. So these game companies, they're not dumb. They're very savvy, and
Hmm.
so they're constantly making money. Now, I don't mind microtransactions. It's specifically for games that are freemium, because these developers, there's people who are developing it. That's how to make a living. I get that.
Hmm.
Paying full price for a game, and then you have to pay more, and then you're nickel and diming. You're not. It's that
Hmm.
actually ludicrous. But what can I say? It's until people stop buying it, they're gonna
Yeah,
keep doing it. And so,
exactly. So, you know, a lot of, like I said, a lot of developers do it very well, right? Um, they only offer like cosmetic upgrades, right? They don't try to like uh, kind of pay while you off, right? Like, oh, you can't play these maps. Oh, you can't play this character. Oh, you can't play this game mode. And generally, what I see is like when it's pretty much cosmetic upgrades only, the profit margin may be smaller, but you're gonna make your, community and your followers and users like a lot happier. But
yeah,
again, these franchises are so huge that it does reach out into the casual consumer space where people like don't mind.
yeah, because they're used to it.
Hmm.
You know.
Or
So,
maybe they don't even know any better, right? Exactly, like, they are new, so they don't know any better, and just like if I was just like a normal like I don't know casual, just have my Xbox or my PS4 or whatever, and all I do is really console game. I just play the big franchises like Call of Duty, Halo, Battlefront, whatever. Then I guess that's okay to them. Even I think like FIFA and the sports games get pretty microtransaction at times, and you know what? Like, people who didn't really grow up with gaming but just like started recently getting into it, it's a norm for them, and I guess they're willing to pay that amount. But I guess for us like veteran gamers who've kind of seen like the growth of it, who have been there since like the start, it is a very weird paradigm shift, and it's something we don't like. But I think we're starting to become like less of like the main consumers of it, and that's why I think publishers
yep,
are able to get away with it.
yep. I just want to do note one thing. You did talk about Steam. The Steam OS boxes, they're now released, and so I hope that becomes more popular because
Hmm.
uh, as a platform, Steam, they're very catered towards gamers.
Hmm.
And so, like for example, if you use that Batman Arkham Asylum, right? They pulled it from Steam
Hmm.
when it was so, and they gave refunds. And so I hope the Steam OS boxes become popular. So then you do give some more control back to the developers, and
Hmm.
not the game publishers. And so, and it's a hybrid. It's PC. It's a PC. And so I hope that grows in popularity. And so we'll probably get some control back.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
yeah. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about is ad blockers. Um, Recently, Yahoo email, they started blocking. If you had an ad blocker, you can't see your email without turning it off. And this other websites have done it before, the Washington Post and so forth. And here are my quick thoughts on it. As a consumer, nobody likes a whole bunch of ads, especially in the old days where you had like pop-up ads everywhere. But the thing is, when you become a content creator, when you make your money off of the internet, or even if you have a business, you need to market, you need to advertise. And I don't think people on the other end as consumers realize that that's how you make money. I don't care what business you're in, you have to advertise and market. Even a few years ago, Adblock, or not even a few years ago, I think last year, Adblock itself, they tried to raise a Kickstarter campaign so then they could create an ad to for Adblocker, which is kind of funny to me. So even they need to advertise and market. So it's kind of a conundrum. I mean, I see the benefit of it because you need to advertise. And if you've ever done any type of advertising online, I do Facebook ads. I just started Facebook ads myself. I've done Google AdWords. So I have done some marketing, and it takes a lot of time to build your campaigns, to target your demographics, to do the designs for the logos, to do the copywriting. It is a lot of effort, and when something like ad blocker, when they use that, that takes all that work away, and all that revenue and all the hard work, especially when you're trying to build a brand. So I don't agree with ad blocks per se, but I also think that as a marketer, you have to think of the consumer in mind. So nobody likes to be spam, but there needs to be a middle ground.
Hmm.
I it's hard for me to say no ad block or with ad block. I
Hmm.
think there needs to be middle ground. But being a content creator now, I see the value of marketing and advertising. It's a necessity. So
Yeah, and so we can talk about the advent of the ad blocker and why, you know, how it came about to be. I guess back in the days of like, you know, around Windows 98, kind of that generation, ads were abused, right? You know,
yep,
the technology wasn't really there to kind of just like, there's no check to stop spamming of ads. And so, you know, initially that's why ad blocker came in place, because it became to the point where it's just like way too annoying. It would inhibit your browsing experience.
yes,
Um, and some places are still like that. If you go to like those shady streaming or pirated websites, you get bombarded with ads. Um, but then again, you know, you're visiting that place for a reason. You should not really be surprised. Anyways, but yeah, you know, like you said, just like the evolution of it, today a lot of content creators are, you know, that's how they make their bread and butter for it. And funny thing is, I want to say the the main ad blocker extension for Chrome and Firefox actually got bought out. So the original developer sold it, and I want to say it got bought by a company, an advertising company actually. And what I think they're gonna do is they're gonna have the default settings to allow some ads, like the ads that they're choosing, right? But it was such a subtle change, and you know, it was a very small change log. Like one day I just opened it up and the change log popped up, and it's like, oh, like at the very bottom, we've been acquired by a different company. And so I think a lot of people won't, you know, actually notice that it'd be a very subtle change. And you know, with that being said, there's probably like another ad blocker out there that, you know, is you know, privately owned now. But yeah, just like the state of it today, man, yeah, like that middle ground. I don't mind ads, you know, as long as it's not inhibiting my experience, right? If it's on the side or whatever, um, you know, myself, I've just been conditioned to not click on them. It's just the way I operate, right? Like I see an ad, I don't really care. Like I go out of my way not to click on it or not to look at it, just because of, you know, the connotation of me is just like that an ad is kind of annoying. I don't know how you feel about it since you got into it. I mean, do you feel more inclined to click on the ads on the side? Do you ever see any ads that interest you?
well, that's the thing. The marketing has changed on the internet. You know, before it was all about in your face as much as you can, but now it's more targeted. So in internet marketing, there's a thing called retargeting. And so what they'll do is, if you visited a website, they will put tracking on you, and it'll look at your habits, and whatever ad you created, it'll be just for you. So whenever there's an ad that's tailored for you, I don't mind. Like there's an internet course that I like, you know, I don't mind. I mean, actually, that's why I bought some of them. But a lot of the marketing now, it's really not like just ads now. It's more video marketing and a combination of ads. Like a lot of times, like our YouTube videos is becoming a huge thing, and Facebook is making a big push because a lot of times you can advertise on your videos, and then as you build your brand, as you build your core group, people don't mind purchasing things. You know, like if you have an affiliate link, like for example, like you were talking about some of the websites you like. What if you got sponsored and it's something that you actually enjoy and you're honest about it? People don't mind doing that. And so I think
Hmm.
it's different. Now, marketing is about relationship and trust and authenticity.
Hmm.
So, so that means like if you're a marketer, if you're still doing pop-up ads and spamming, you're not going to make it, you know? And as far as ad blockers, as more and more websites, big websites are blocking these, I think they're going to be going down even further, and especially they're being acquired by advertising companies. You know,
Hmm.
there's no way you could make money in terms of a business and have long-term status without some type of advertising and marketing. And so
Hmm.
that's how I feel about it. I mean, I think ads and marketing in general, it has changed. So it's different now. So
Hmm.
those are the topics that I wanted to talk about. Why don't we start with your topics?
Yeah, so really one of the only topics I have today is the Surface Pro 4 review. Uh, I've had it for about, what is that?
I'm looking forward to this one. Everybody talking
Oh,
about the iPad
yeah, yeah,
Pro.
yeah. All right, you know, I wish I had an external webcam because I'm actually on it right now. So, you know, if you've been watching the
Sweet.
video, there's part of the review for you. You can see the video quality and judge for yourself if you like it or not. If I had an external webcam, I would definitely show you around it. But so, you know, I've had this for about 2 or 3 weeks. I've been using it pretty lightly. I still have a full-fledged desktop at home. And I'll go into the reason why I wanted to buy this in the first place. I'm a software engineer, trying to make it big in the Bay Area, which is going to be a lot of like moving around, shuffling around from, meet to meet or from, company to company or whatever. So the biggest and most important thing for me when I was looking for a new laptop was the ultra portability factor. Not only that, but I like to carry around my own mechanical keyboard as well. So to me, wasn't gonna use the base whatever keyboard comes with the laptop anyways, right? So those were like probably the two biggest factors for me. I looked at a lot of laptops for like the past 2 or 3 months, and I just decided that Surface Pro 4 met those needs for me. So I'll talk about the hardware design, the performance, the battery, software, competitors, things like that. But let's start off with the hardware. So, the first thing that impressed me about it was that this is a premium piece of hardware. It feels nice, looks very nice. The aluminum back is, it's just very clean. And even though it's light, it's, I think, around like 1.7 pounds or something, right? It's under 2 pounds, which is, extremely light for a full-fledged, uh, Windows 10 full OS experience, right? It's light, but it still feels heavy enough to be sturdy, right? It still feels durable. It feels good to hold in your hand. It feels like a good device. Um, so yeah, not only that, the screen is amazing. The quality on it is very good. It's like a 3000 by 2000 resolution. It is a different resolution, so it's like a 3:2 resolution. It's not your normal, 16:9 or whatever. So it's a little blockier. But I haven't really noticed that like affecting any of my work or anything. As a programmer, I like to have two windows open. Normally like my code on one side and like a tutorial or whatever, or my preview on the right side. So yeah, screen looks great. It's a high PPI, which is pixel per inch. It's a very very good screen. The color quality is very good. Um, a lot of graphic designers will use especially artists, right? Because just the whole touch screen and as like a drawing platform. I'm not into drawing myself, but I feel like uh, it's gonna cater hugely to those digital artists. Um, so yeah, just like the material news, it feels super high quality. It's a premium product. The kickstand. If you're not familiar with the Surface Pro, so there's kind of like this a little flap on the back that you can kind of adjust, pretty widely, anywhere from like 0 degrees to maybe like 130, 140 degrees. So more than a right angle. So you can lay it down like all the way flat almost, and you can bring it back up. So yeah, just as the device itself feels very very good, very sturdy, great screen. So we'll talk about those are the pros. So some of the cons, it does only have one USB port, um, which is can be a factor for some people. To be honest, you can just get a USB hub, but that's something extra you have to carry around. For me, I got a Bluetooth mouse. I'm gonna mod my keyboard to Bluetooth, so I'm going with zero wires. The only wire I need will just be the charging port. But for other people who have multiple devices or need have the need to connect multiple things to it, yeah, it could do better in that standpoint. But I mean, for me, it's fine. And it's kind of like the whole theme of the Surface Pro, right? There's a lot of things that I tolerate with it, but there's a lot of things that some other people may not tolerate with it. So, anyway, so just keep that in mind for now. And as far as the hardware goes, there is some quality control inconsistencies. Uh, I have a slight backlight bleed, and backlight bleed is where some of the light from the LED kind of comes in front. So, for example, if you're looking at like a completely black screen, there's going to be like these little spots of white light that you can see. It's very, very, it's unnoticeable unless you are looking at a completely black screen, which is hardly ever. So yeah, there is some backlight bleed issues, but for me, it's at the bottom, and my taskbar is there anyway, so it doesn't bother me. That, and I know some other people have also had kind of like the frame is not all the way snapped together. So for me, there's like a slight gap right above my webcam. I noticed it the other day, and it's small enough for me to, I can't unnotice it now. But if I never looked up there before, I would have never noticed. So Yeah, and I think there really hasn't been like a dead pixel issue. So, after reading a lot of forums and just kind of going on Reddit r surface, just seeing everyone else's general consensus that the quality control isn't quite up to parity with Apple. Um, a lot of people have had to return their Surface Pros, so it's kind of hard for me to, if for a casual user, if you don't want to deal with that, then maybe not yet. From a hardware perspective, there's a lot of other things we need to talk about too before we get into that. So, we'll talk about the performance. I got so different models. There's actually five different models. There's a M3, which is actually a fanless model, so it's all passive cooling. Um, I haven't had the chance to play around with the M3, but the one I do have is the i5 model, kind of the middle of the road. i5 6300U, which is a dual core processor, latest generation of Intel. Um, and the one I got, so i5 8 gigs, 256 SSD at $1,300, and the performance I was expecting, I actually thought it'd be a little better. I'm not saying it's bad at all, but just watching videos on YouTube or Twitch, it does kick on the fan. So around, I think like if your processor is around like the 50 Celsius mark, which is actually pretty low, but when you think about a device this thin, you're definitely gonna feel the heat on the back, right? So yeah, video internet video playback isn't as good as I'd like it to be. I honestly thought it'd be passively cooled, but the fan does kick on in some instances. Other than that, I haven't really pushed it that much. I haven't played any games on it yet. I know some people can run Fallout 4 on like probably low, medium settings around like 40, 50 frames per second, which is playable. Um, so it definitely is a capable device, but I feel like if you're expecting a native like Android or iOS experience where everything is like buttery smooth all the time, it doesn't get hot. Um, there's no fans in those devices, obviously. So if you really approach it as like a tablet kind of device, I think the fan is a little off-putting, as is performance. But again, you're running like a full OS, you're running it in Chrome. I'm running it in Chrome, which is, kind of resource heavy. So, I expect it to be maybe a little better, but it's not enough to put me away. Again, this device is a laptop first and a tablet second. So yeah, as far as the performance goes, I've been able to run my programming on it. Building, compiling, having multiple tabs, multiple windows open. I played around with Photoshop a little bit, and it's a very capable device. But again, uh, don't expect it to be a completely silent device, as the fan will kick in because temperatures will increase so slightly. Um, yeah, and with that, I guess along with temperatures, we could talk about the battery life. you know, the more you use your device, the more intensive processing power you require out of it, your battery life is obviously going to go down. So for me, and the device comes with one battery setting, which is balance. And at the balance level, you know, watching YouTube or your Twitch will kick it up into like the 50 Celsius degree range, which will turn the fan on. What I had to do, and so there's like a lot of little software tweaks and hacks that I did to customize it to, my liking. And this is something that the average consumer won't ever really touch or ever really think about. Um, which goes along with my theme of if you can tolerate it, then you're gonna love it. But for the average consumer so far, just keep in mind all these things that I'm talking about. I had to do a lot of registry hacks to, for example, uh, I Skype with my girlfriend a lot, and oftentimes I need to turn my screen off, right? So there's no way where you can like leave Skype running in the background but turn your screen off. So there's this thing called like connected standby, which basically lets some apps run in the background while your tablet is in like, quote unquote like sleep mode or standby mode. I actually turned it off, and once I turned it off, it actually enabled more battery options. So if you're familiar with the Windows laptop battery settings, there's like power saver, there's balance, and there's high performance. And each of those levels, they help you save battery pretty much based on your clock speed, or kind of like limiting your CPU to a certain range. So performance may get laggy, but it's going to be cooler and it's going to use less battery, right? Um, so for me, after doing this like registry hack, these like these tweaks and workarounds, um, I unlocked the power saver setting, which is good enough to watch videos at to Skype on, but if I try browsing, it's gonna get a little laggy. Um, anyway, so I brought that up because of the battery life. I would say probably about like if you're doing video playback online, it'll probably run you about 3 or 4 hours at 100% charge. And that's on the default balance setting. And a lot of people on these forums as well are kind of like they're kind of questioning the battery life on it. Like, why is it so little, or why is it just me? And a lot of people just I think expected more battery life out of it, but and myself as well. But if you look at the device, it's extremely thin, it's extremely light, and so it's comparative to like a laptop, but I don't think it's quite as good as a normal laptop battery life. So if you're still thinking about choosing between like a Surface Pro or a traditional laptop, um, Surface Pro is not as good. If you don't mind having a charger around with you, if you're gonna do more than 3 or 4 hour sessions, then yeah, it's fine. But if you need it for longer than that, um, then you might want to consider something else. All right. So, along with the those tweaks and hacks I talked about, we can talk about like the software in general. And this is the part where it really is really going to break it to the normal consumer, and part of the reason why I won't recommend it yet to the average consumer. Day one, even like the following weeks after that, a lot of driver crashes, a lot of the computer just crashing, blue screens. You know, I remember when I first turned on my device and registered it and set everything up. The very first time I turned it on, I blue screened, and that was kind of like a a telltale. It wasn't too bad of a telltale sign, but I was just like, huh, really? But I stuck with it, and it really hasn't crashed too much since then. But you know, it's just not there yet. Probably like once every week or 2 weeks, I have to spend like an hour or so tweaking something or uninstalling something or updating something. And for me, that's fine because I'm a tech guy. But for the average consumer, I think it's going to be pretty frustrating. So on that front, it's nowhere near as polished as like a OS X product, to be honest. Um, yeah, and that's the price you get for being an early adopter, right? So a lot of people they want to love the device. A lot of people do love their device. Um, I love my device, but the only reason I love it is because I can tolerate what all these issues, right? Because it fits the criteria that I want, and I don't mind, spending time to, you know, fix it or make it work. So yeah, and again, in the previous things I talked about, like the one USB port, the battery life, for the casual consumer, if that's gonna put you away, then you probably shouldn't get it at the moment. Maybe in a few months when everything gets more, all the bugs are ironed out and becomes more stable, then yeah, um, maybe it would be a better choice then. But for now, like I said, I don't want to recommend it to the casual user.
Can I leave my thoughts on that real quick? The Surface Pro.
Yeah, go ahead.
Um, I don't think Microsoft initially, the Surface Pro, they're not made for mass consumers.
Hmm.
They're just not. I mean, because a mass consumer isn't going to spend that much money, and a mass consumer is just going to get it to surf the web anyway. So I don't think it's made for them yet. I think as the price goes down, when Microsoft have different tiers of Surface Pros, that's when more people are going to buy it. But I don't think the average consumer is going to buy a Surface Pro. It's definitely
Hmm.
not the Surface Pro 4. However, people who are buying the iPad Pro, they might also consider the Surface Pro 4.
Hmm.
I think the Surface Pro 4 is better if you actually want to get real work done. I don't.
Hmm.
What you say about being creative with the iPad Pro or an Android tablet, they are not a full blown OS.
Hmm.
Although they don't crash as much as so forth, there's only so much that you can do with a tablet or a mobile based OS. You need a full OS.
Mm,
And at that,
definitely.
with the iPad Pro, you're going to be spending, including the Apple Pen and the keyboard, you're going to be spending almost the same amount as a Surface Pro 4, but you're not going to be able to do as much.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, and so a pretty good review I saw the other day is like, if you need a tablet first, go with the iPad Pro. If you need a laptop first, definitely go with the Surface Pro. And like you said, as far as productivity, I just don't see a tablet OS being as productive as a full blown, laptop desktop experience. For example, like in the iPad Pro, you can't even run two of the same apps, right? Like for example, wish you want to have like two PDFs open. In the iPad Pro 4, you definitely can't do that. You can't run two of the same apps. What is the price point of the iPad Pro? I actually don't know.
the iPad Pro by itself for the base model, I think there's a 32 gig, and then there's a 128 gig, and
Mm.
they're non-compatible. I think the base model is 1,000. It's like 990. It's a thousand
Oh,
dollars.
wow.
Okay,
Yeah.
$100, and then the Apple Pen itself is $100, and then the keyboard dock is another $170, and so you're already going to spend over $1,000 for sure, and then
Mm.
obviously you don't have a USB port, so you're going to have to get some dongle to make that work.
Mm.
Um, they're promoting it for the creative types. I guess that makes sense,
Mm.
but you're not going to be able to run full Photoshop on there,
Mm.
and so I'm not really. And Apple is they do make great products, but their biggest strength is their marketing. People are
Mm.
going to buy it because it says Apple on it. But yet, if you're comparing how much you're spending versus the Surface Pro 4, the value proposition, it's already out the window. I mean, you're definitely going to get more done. And even if you say you're the creative type, well, the Surface Pro 4 is still a tablet. You can use the Microsoft Pen
Mm.
stylus, and that's a very accurate pen, as I understand it. And then you could
Mm.
actually work on it. You don't have to transfer it to your desktop Mac OS or your laptop and then do some editing. You could
Mm.
do it right there. So I think if those people who are in the market for that high end, if I had to choose between the two, Surface Pro 4. I mean, that's a
Mm.
no-brainer, I think. You know?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I guess I haven't seen too much about the iPad Pro, but my initial impression is like, why is there a tablet that expensive? You know, you can
Yeah,
easily get something else.
Apple. It's
Yeah,
Apple. That's the reason
I
why.
mean, like really the only thing that differentiates it from like the normal iPad is I would just say like the pen recognition, right? I
The big
mean,
screen.
yeah, just a big screen and pen recognition, but is it worth like the extra, $400, $500? It's just like
Yeah,
to me, it seems like a super glorified tablet.
yeah,
Um,
it's supersized iPad, and you can't even expand the storage. If you're
mhm.
a creative type, can you imagine just your videos alone? They take up a lot of space. So I don't know who's it for. I mean, if you love Apple, that's the
And
only
then
people I could
yeah,
work with.
and then you think about the app support, right? So these are just like iOS apps, right? They're not
Yes.
the desktop versions of it. So you know, later down the line when you when you do need like a specific type of software, how are you gonna find it if it's only really gonna be catered to the iPad Pro specifically, right?
That's
So
correct.
there may be like a Photoshop for iPad Pro, but it just feels like the market would be too small. Uh, that and I feel like I heard that the latest iPad Mini, like the iPad Mini 4, sales haven't been as good, and so they're slashing prices down already from 400 to 300 within a couple months. So maybe we just see like the trailing sales of tablets in general because like what
Yep.
else do you need your tablet to do? Like I feel like the hardware is starting to plateau, right? Like there's only so much more you can do with a tablet at this point, other than just better screen size, better battery. There's like probably the two things I could really think of at the moment.
Yeah.
So yeah, as far as competitors to Surface Pro 4, there's also the Surface Book, the MacBook Pros. I would say that the Surface Pro 4 is more in line with like the MacBook Pro 13, which is actually a very similar price, anywhere from like I think around 1,000 to 1,500, right? Which is about the same for the Surface Pro 4. As far as performance goes, it's pretty close. Surface Pro 4 is lighter. You know, it's more. It comes down to like, do you want Windows or OS X? Uh, do you like the MacBook keyboard? And other than that, I feel like you should go with either or. you're gonna be pretty happy if you're a tech kind of person. If you don't want to deal with all the small, bugs and issues I talked about, maybe you want to go with the MacBook Pro 13. But if you can look past that, you want a Windows environment. You know, you want like the touch screen, you want the ability to use a pen. Um, then maybe Surface Pro 4 for you. And then it's more about the MacBook Pro 15 and the Surface Book. Surface Book also has all the issues plus some, I think, of the Surface Pro 4 that I mentioned. The software is just, it's a little buggy at the moment. A lot of crashes, a lot of just, drivers failing or whatever. So again, give it some time to mature, and, you know, the concept of the device and the idea is, really good. I really, really like it. I really want to love everything about it. I do love it, but, only because I can tolerate it. And then, okay, so then we could talk about some alternates. The HP NV2 was recently announced, which is kind of like a Surface clone. Basically, it's just, yeah, the kickstand, tablet, and an attachable keyboard dock. And so the difference with that, it may be a little cheaper. The specs aren't going to be as good, so it's going to use like a weaker processor. But the thing it does have on the Surface is that it's easier to change out like the hard drive or the RAM on it, so it's actually accessible. Uh, the Surface Pro 4, it's from what I heard, it's going to be extremely hard to work on or modify.
iFixit gave it really low ratings, like
Yeah,
a zero.
yeah. I mean, for good reason though. In order to cram all that into such a thin form factor, they had to, just
Mhm.
make it not expandable or really had to make a lot of things just super super chained together. You know what I mean? Like just hard to work on. But the upside on that is that the device is extremely thin. Downside is that if something goes wrong, you probably have to send it in and get it professionally repaired or replaced. So it's not really like a DIY kind of thing. Um, so some of the other alternatives are like the new Dell XPSs. I don't know if you've seen those, but it's probably like a good competitor to the MacBook Pros as well. Um, those look like they have super sweet screens, and probably the upside on those. So the biggest thing I can see on those is that it would have like a dedicated video card, a
Mhm.
960M. So if you're looking for like a pretty decent gaming laptop, I would go with like the XPSs or even like a traditional gaming laptop. So MSI, they have this Go series, which are also super thin. I think less than 4 pounds, and those have like a 970M in it, which is actually a very good video card. Um, you could be running modern games on high at close to 60 frames a second on a laptop at under 4 pounds. That's pretty amazing. And again, I would say like the XPS line in that gaming laptop I just mentioned, the MSI Go series, it's probably going to be around like the 1600 mark as well. So you know, again to recap, I love the device. The biggest pro for me is the fact that I can use my own keyboard. Um, it's super thin, super portable, ultralight. The screen is great. Um, Actually, I forgot to mention the kickstand. So, I read this term. This is a term called lapability. The ability to hold your laptop in your actual lap, right? Um, and it's a very subtle change, and maybe a lot of people will notice it, but the Surface Pro 4 is extremely good at putting it in your lap. Just because of the design of the kickstand, you could adjust it so many different ways. It's actually very stable. So if you put a traditional unibody laptop on your lap and you're typing on it, a lot of the time the screen is so heavy that the hinge will kind of rock back and forth, right? And then you have to end up adjusting it a lot. With Surface Pro 4, that issue isn't there. It's super stable. I can move around. If I decide to cross my legs, I can adjust the kickstand to really, uh, change the angle on that to make it more stable as well. I've been using it in bed a lot as well, and it's just a lot more versatile in the way that you hold it in your lap or on your body. Um, the only downside is that when watching videos or Skyping, you can't put it at less than a 90-degree right angle, right? So you know, just the way it's designed, it has to be like kind of back all the way. You can't lean it forward, right? So, when I'm Skyping the video, it's never gonna be like looking down, right? It's always gonna be at least fully frontal or upwards. So watching videos or, video chatting in bed, you know, a little bit
Um,
of a downside just because it can't look down, but Other than that, the stand is excellent. Very, very versatile, very, very sturdy and stable. So yeah. Anyways, overall,
That was in depth.
yeah. So overall, uh, the fact that I wanted a portable device, that I wanted to use my own keyboard, that it's super light, screen resolution is great, performance wise, it meets all my needs. Doing web development, is a pretty middle of the road, powerhouse device. It's not like a powerhouse, but kind of enough to get programming done, enough to run Photoshop, probably enough to edit videos and do some very light gaming on it. Um, yeah, and again, there's hardware issues, there's software issues, but if you're willing to tolerate that, if you're a tech savvy user, if you want to be, you know, feel the wrath of early adopting something and you don't mind, and she want to invest in something and she really want to love it because you invested so much into it and like I guess kind of be proud of it in that sense, and yeah, I would recommend it. um with your casual user, I can't recommend it just yet. It's very close, but it's not quite there. um and overall, I think that it's not like a huge game changer. Like, if you look at a smartphone, like when the smartphones first came out, that was a huge game changer, right? I feel this is kind of like a 2.5 device. It's almost a game changer. It's almost, you know, convenient enough, and the software is almost uh, fluid enough to be there, but not quite there. So it's falling a little short in some places, but you know what? I'm happy about the investment. I'm happy about my purchase, and hopefully within the next, year or two, um, we'll see some more innovation in these devices. As you already saw, like the HP is already cloning it, and so something good that Microsoft has done is the fact that they set the standard, right, and now people are going to start cloning it and innovating on it and hopefully making it better, and hopefully we'll be seeing a lot more of these devices out there because you know with a few more tweaks and renovations of it, I think it could be a game changer eventually.
So overall, you're saying it's a buy, right?
If so, there's a lot of contingent factors there. If you're tech savvy, if you're willing to tolerate these issues,
Yes.
it is a buy.
Yeah.
But if you just want your device to work, I'm gonna recommend against it.
Got you.
Yeah.
And when I see it at the store, I think it's a very well done device. It's just
Hmm.
not there yet.
Yeah.
That's all. I think when they get it there and they have different tiers from the mass consumer level up to the high end,
Hmm.
that's when you're going to be seeing more people adopt it. Now, it's so funny that you talk about a high end laptop and a tablet hybrid. So maybe in the next episode, I'm actually going to be purchasing a new laptop.
Hmm.
So I'm going to be approaching it from a different level. I'm looking for a sub $300 laptop, and I will actually be putting Linux on it. And
Hmm.
so maybe on the next episode, I'll be talking about my adventures of getting a really good quality sub $300 tablet,
Hmm.
and then trying to put Linux on top of Windows. Hopefully, the secure boot doesn't stop me
Hmm.
from
Yeah.
staying.
Yeah.
So
And so another reason why I chose this, I've had at the other day I was looking at it, I had three laptops, and I was like, man, I just didn't want another laptop. I have a full fledged desktop at home, and I just want to try something different. And maybe if you're tired of like the normal laptop, yeah, look at the Surface Pro 4. But if you just want another laptop, then get another laptop.
yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, uh, there's still a lot more I can talk about the Surface Pro. Just talk about all the small little tweaks and fixes and things like that. So maybe I'll start blogging that as well. Just like some tips and tricks, and be like, oh, you should try doing this. You should do on the Surface Pro 4. So, probably be on the lookout for that. I'll probably start documenting that as well.
Now, did you have any other topics that you wanted to talk about before we wrap up?
Um, no, I realize that my review of the Surface Pro may have been kind of all over the place, but just my initial impressions on it. Um, as far as what I'm gonna do next with it, like I said earlier, I'm gonna mod my keyboard to do a Bluetooth. I'll show you my keyboard here. So this is a uh, Nopo keyboard. It's a actually Chinese manufacturer. I bought it for around like $80. As you see, it's hardwired. These are actually Gate-Around Brown switches, and so the difference between a mechanical keyboard and a traditional keyboard is that actually mechanical keyboards used to be the norm. If you look way back into like the 70s, 80s, and early 90s, you had those really clicky keyboards, right? Like the IBM Model M, which is probably the most famous mechanical keyboard. So even if you hear a difference, it's more clicky. They started getting more popular again due to gaming. They are a little bit better for gaming, and so just with the increase of PC gaming and like the visibility in that, more and more mechanical keyboards are coming out, and just the popularity is increasing. Um, and again, those are kind of like the normal mass consumer type of mechanical keyboards, and the ones I'm really getting into are like the more niche kind. Anyways, so a traditional keyboard, it needs rubber domes. So when you press down on a button, it's normally a rubber dome. So it feels like a little squishy. Laptops, they have a scissor type key, which is kind of like a mini version of the rubber dome. And the mechanical keys are actually mechanical switches that have like springs in them. And so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be modding this from a wired keyboard. I'm going to be turning it into a Bluetooth keyboard. I'm going to be buying a BLE device, which is a Bluetooth Low Energy device. That's going to have an Arduino on the same board. So not only am I going to be doing the soldering on the board, I'm actually going to be programming the microcontroller itself and writing my own keyboard firmware. And then I'll log that as well. So if you guys are interested in that, you can follow that. If you have any questions for me, if you want to attempt the same kind of project, we could all learn together. But yeah, so I'm just gonna make this into a wireless Bluetooth keyboard, and then it's gonna complement my Surface Pro. Only wire I'm gonna have is the charger, so I have my wireless mouse, I have my wireless keyboard, and then it'd just be super easy to pick up, use it as a tablet, put it back down, use it as a laptop. So yeah.
Remember, all of that, including that Arduino board, all of that just to have your keyboard wireless.
Um, you
Keyboard
can
wireless.
you can buy the keyboard wireless already, so there are a few mechanical keyboards that come standard with the Bluetooth. But as a hobbyist, as an enthusiast, um, I haven't really gotten to the space of soldering and uh, being a maker, quote unquote. So yeah, for me, this is just a fun project for me to do, and I feel like it's gonna be super satisfying. And in the end, I'm gonna have a custom keyboard. It's something that I made, and then it's gonna, hopefully, improve my Surface Pro experience, and just yeah, just fun stuff for me to do actually.
So,
That's
is that what you got for the Pro 4?
what is that?
Is that all that you got for the Surface Pro 4?
Yeah, and this kind of revolves around the idea of the podcast, right? This is called Geek Bros Talk. This is me geeking out about my keyboard, you know, all things geek. We're getting into like all those different spaces, so hey man, don't be hating. This is being a geek is what we're all about.
I love it. I love it. I mean, and whenever we talk about these geek related, and geek is your own interpretation,
Hmm.
but what I love about it is it spans so many different areas now. Before it was primarily hardware based, but now it's hardware, it's software, it's platforms.
It's
There's so
design, it's
yeah,
everything.
programs,
Yeah.
so many things that we can discuss, and it's only going to get better. It's
Hmm.
only going to get so good stuff.
We're gonna age like a fine wine, so hopefully you guys stick with us. If you have anything else to talk about, I think we're gonna wrap it up in that case.
Yeah, and leave your comments or ideas below, and don't
Hmm.
forget to subscribe as well.
Yeah, subscribe, like, comment. Let us know what you think. If topics you want us to talk about, if you want to get involved with some of the discussion, just let us know, and we'll definitely talk about it. So if not, I think we're gonna be signing off, and we'll see you guys next week.
All right,
All right, have a good one.
later.